All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly Friday chai chat. Today we have a special chai chat because we have three guests today, and one of them will join us a little bit later. So we have a U.S. Marines
as Marty's
who
Miracles.
actually are working at the U.S. Embassy Tashkent currently, and they agreed to contact and to do this chat for us today. Thank you guys so much, and it's wonderful to have you with us this evening.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're glad to be here.
So I'm going to tell people how it's going to work today. Each of you will have a presentation, and after three presentations, we will have a chance to receive questions from our audience live. And hopefully, I know that Facebook has some problems right now here in Uzbekistan, but we hope we'll get some good questions today. And I want to remind everyone that if you have problems getting into Facebook, we also streaming live on YouTube. So you can go on YouTube and you see the link in the description to this post. So first of all, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Lance Corporal Joseph Paulino. Joseph?
Hi.
Hi. He's originally from New Jersey. Growing up, Joseph enjoyed playing baseball and basketball, playing video games, watching movies and shows on Netflix, and spending time with his friends and family, both in the United States and in Dominican Republic. Joseph knew he wanted to join the military since he was in a freshman year at school. And as senior year approached, it was clear to him that he wanted to be a Marine. He wanted to take on a challenge and prove himself. So, Joseph, I'm giving the floor to you.
Okay. Hi. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the amazing introduction. Yeah, you pretty much covered it all. We are the U.S. Marines here at Tashkent. I'm Lance Corporal Paulino. This is my first post as a Marine security guard, and this is my first time doing a chai chat, so please bear with me. All right, so we'll get right into this. All right, so this is my hometown. I was born and raised in Paterson, New Jersey. So I've been there from 2000 all the way up until 2019 when I enlisted into the Marine Corps. And this is going to be a presentation on my Marine Corps experience. So while in high school, I wanted to be in the military, and as senior year came to an end, I made a decision to enlist in the United States Marine Corps. My friends all continued to college after graduating, but this route wasn't for me since I didn't have any desire to stay in the classroom. I wanted to be a part of an organization with purpose, and the Marine Corps was what I was looking for. So shortly after speaking with my recruiter, I took the oath of enlistment. I was waiting on my ship date to go to boot camp. I did go to the USMC boot camp at Parris Island, South Carolina. I was there from February 2019 to May 2019, 13 weeks. So boot camp is 13 weeks of challenge and hardship. It all starts at the yellow footprints down on the bottom left. Upon arriving, you will make your last phone call home, as you can see on the bottom right. There are no phones allowed throughout the entire training. This is your last chance to talk to your family. And male recruits will get their haircut. They will have bald heads upon arriving. Black Friday. So Black Friday is when we meet our drill instructors. So the first few days in boot camp, you spend the first few days with your receiving drill instructors. So they're not actually your permanent drill instructors that you're going to be with the entire time. So they basically are preparing you for your in processing, and then they will teach you some basic things. but Black Friday is when you actually meet your permanent drill instructors who will be with you for the 13 weeks, and it's quite an experience. So really early on, we become acquainted with IT, or incentive training, which is a consequence for failure to perform to a drill instructor's expectation. So on the bottom left, you can see sand pits. That's where they'd usually IT you, or they could IT you in the squad bay, as you can see on the right. So this consists of DIs instructing us to perform multiple exercises while usually yelling at maximum volume. So IT usually would consist of front planks, push-ups, just a whole lot of different exercises meant to just fatigue you and basically punish you. So we spend a bulk of our training learning how to drill. So we spent countless hours just drilling, marching around the base. So this is the formations we get into, and these pictures right here are guys who already probably are at the end of boot camp. So on week 4, we have our swim calls, in which we are tested in our abilities in the water. So it consists of a 25-meter swim, but this 25-meter swim is going to be actually with full camis, or full camouflage uniform, and boots. So it's actually a little harder than it sounds. And it also does consist of a 10-foot jump followed by a 25-meter swim. You have to tread water for at least 3 minutes. You have to, on the bottom, you can see where you have to jump into the water with full gear, which is a flag or a vest, Kevlar or the helmet, a rifle. And once you jump in, you have to remove all these things in less than 10 seconds. And then on the top left, you can see where you have to swim with the LB packs for 25 meters. So those packs can be really heavy when you pack them up for hikes, but they do actually float in the water. So it's actually pretty easy to swim with those. So during week 5, we perform our first combat fitness test, which consists of an 880-yard sprint, ammo can lifts, and a maneuver under fire course. And we also conduct our first hike during this week. On the bottom left, that was actually my drill instructor. I thought that was pretty funny, and I wanted to include it. So Marines train for combat by sparring with pugil sticks, which represent bayonets, by sparring and with pugil sticks. So we would do sparring with boxing gloves and protective gear and our bayonet and our pugil sticks. The pugil sticks are meant to represent bayonets at the end of our rifles. So it basically gives you a chance to see what that would feel like. So we learned how to safely rappel down a 60-foot tower. This is personally a part of boot camp I did not look forward to, but it's the time to get past fear of heights for many recruits. This is definitely one of the scariest things in boot camp for me. Just once you get up on the tower, you're really high up, and it's a really scary experience. So in boot camp, we have the gas chamber, in which we are tested on our ability to handle stress and clear a massive CS gas. So we are instructed, basically we go into a gas chamber with our gas mask, and we are instructed to break the seals of our gas mask. So we use 2 fingers to basically break the seal and let the gas come in. We do this a number of times, and we have to be able to remain calm and actually go through the procedures to clear the gas mask out. As long as you remain calm and clear it out, you'll be fine. But for most people, it's their first time and they're in a stressful environment. Drill instructors are yelling at them, so they may not clear it correctly. Gas gets in, they breathe it in, their eyes are open, and then they start to get really bad reactions. On the bottom right, you can see these guys are not having a good time. So every Marine is a rifleman. Therefore, we learn to shoot at M16 rifles in the sitting, prone, kneeling, and standing. So on the bottom left, you can see the coach. So he basically we spend 2 weeks at the range with the coach, and they basically teach us all the fundamentals for shooting. We learn how to shoot in the prone, which is laying down, sitting, kneeling, and standing. We shoot from 500 meters to all the way up to 100 meters. And basically, this is where we learn all our fundamentals and apply it in the future. So all of this training and boot camp, it all comes to an end with a culminating event called the Crucible. The Crucible is a 54-hour field training in which recruits receive minimal food and sleep. This is where we are tested on everything we have learned and endured, and we will hike over 45 miles throughout the event. So the point of boot camp, or the point of the Crucible, is to basically, it's the culminating event of everything you've learned, and you're gonna basically have to do it on minimal resources. So you're only allowed to sleep about 6 hours the entire 54-hour time. And you're doing it on minimal food. So you're tired and you're hungry, and it's pretty stressful. And you're going to have to just push through it, basically. And it's going to be a test of your endurance, for sure. So May 24th, 2019, I graduated boot camp. Finally, after 13 weeks of extensive training and unwavering commitment, we are rewarded with what is the proudest day for many, graduation. So from February to May, I was in boot camp. Now, from June to August, I went on boot leave after boot camp from May 24th to about June for 10 days. So I arrived to ITB, Infantry Trading Battalion East, on June, was there until August. It's a 2-month-long school. So after boot camp, I reported ITB East, where I would further to train my MOS, or job in the military, which is 0311 Infantry Rifleman. ITB was 59 days long for the Infantry Marines, as it also served as the MOS school. So one part of ITB were the hikes. We conducted numerous hikes from 5, 10, 15, and 20 kilometers in distance, and with a heavy load. So the minimum weight we'd carry is about 50 pounds, and I definitely say it went up to about 100 pounds. One of the most memorable times in ITB was MOUT, which stands for Military Operations in Urban Terrain. So this was MOUT Town. We conducted various patrols and raids in the town that was made for training. This was definitely one of the most exciting things I've done so far in Marine Corps. Alongside our combat instructors, we went on patrols and did basically raids on the houses. Even got to act as the bad guys and engage other Marines out there. We spent the week there. It was a good break from the field because we actually got to stay in one of the houses. So it was a pretty realistic training and very interesting, very enjoyable. So the last school I've been to, the Marine Corps, I've only been in the Marine Corps for a year. So this sums it up right here, is MSG school. I was in MSG school from August to January. So the school is 2 months long, but I was there from August to January because there was a holding period in which I needed to wait for the school, for the class I was already in, to graduate before I could actually pick up with the next class. And then, so basically I was there for 5 months. But MSG school was basically where I trained to be a Marine security guard and learn how to come out here to the U.S. embassies and defend the U.S. embassies. So, so basically we went through all the alarm systems, handcuffing. We did some shooting there. We did a lot of things. I didn't include a lot of the pictures in here because there isn't too much that I can really put in here. But this is basically where I was last at and where I trained to come out to Tashkent. So I arrived at Tashkent in February 1st. So I've been here for 7 months. I've been here for 6 months. So it's been a great time here. Basically, I've learned a lot of things here in this embassy. Basically, how to actually execute the operational plans we have for any kind of emergencies, and we learn how to stay ready for anything that may happen. And that is it. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Joseph. That was very interesting. And we got a question before we move to David, just because this question really about your speech. We have a question from the U.S. Embassy Tashkent, and they ask if you like hiking. There are a lot of places to hike not far from Tashkent. Have you had a chance to be there during your stay in Uzbekistan?
I haven't actually gone hiking. I heard about it from the last Lance Corporal Campbell. He told me that there were some mountains that he went hiking with the ambassador. Actually, I've been to the mountains, but it was on a ski trip. Didn't do any hiking, but yeah, I do like hiking, and I have to look into that and maybe go with the new Marines that we have here.
Mm-hmm. All right, wonderful, thank you. So now we'll move to our other speaker, and I'm very pleased to introduce Sgt David Ramirez. Hi, David.
Hi there. It's a pleasure to meet you all. If you guys pay attention, you might notice that there's a shoulder in my screen. That's actually Joseph, because he's right here with me. So occasionally if you see us like looking back and forth, we're kind of giving each other signs and stuff. It's a pleasure to be here. I got here in late June, so I haven't been here that long. I really haven't gotten to see much thanks to COVID, but hopefully eventually when things clear up, I'll be afforded more opportunities for that.
Yeah, we hope so too. I just want to introduce you to everyone. David is originally from California, and while in high school, he joined the Explorer program run by the local police department, designed to introduce teens into a career in law enforcement and criminal justice. And he was in this program for almost 4 years, and then he decided he would enlist into the army. But he ran into a Marine recruiter, and after a couple of minutes speaking to him, he was dead set on joining the Marines. So shortly after graduating the high school, David enlisted in the Marines and began training. And after completing the training, he had the opportunity to visit various countries, both on and off duty. So David, now I'm just leaving the floor to you so that you could talk about your experience in the Marine Corps.
Okay. There's going to be a slight change of plans just due to our third speaker possibly not showing up. I'm going to expand further on my experience utilizing Joseph's presentation for the initial part.
Where do you like me to go?
Just go over at the start. Minus the first slide, of course.
Right. This one?
Second slide?
Yeah, this is the second slide.
Next one?
You want me to?
Yeah. That's one.
Sorry.
Just full screen it. All right, so there's actually 2 different places you can go to training for boot camp. One is Parris Island in South Carolina, and the other one is in San Diego, which surprisingly enough, we actually have one person here from South Carolina and one that went to Hollywood, which is me. The one in San Diego is often referred to as Hollywood just because it's a little bit glorified with how it is over there, and it is fairly new compared to South Carolina. Next. There are definitely a bunch of fun times and memorable times out there, like the yellow footprints. Everyone will remember that because when we first get there, they'll have us stand on those footprints, and pretty much being fairly new to to the recruit training, we're a little bit clueless on what to do. So we're getting yelled at often a lot, or we're getting told what to do. We also get a uniform haircut, well, they'll pretty much cut all our hair off. And that's also one of the most memorable moments too. That's why when I see that picture there, it brings me a little smile on the inside, just because we know that experience and it's something mutually we all share. Right, Joseph?
Yeah, this guy's famous too, by the way. You're a Hollywood Marine, so you wouldn't know, but he has a video on YouTube. He's been there for a long time.
It's okay, we have one too. And of course, we are constantly being yelled at by our instructors. That's just to put a mental strain on you, just to simulate the fog of war, because during those times you will be going through multiple things, multiple stimuli, and that helps put you under pressure. And getting used to that, it helps you control it as well. I think Joseph did a pretty good explanation on Black Friday when you meet your initial drill instructors. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip that for now. Ooh, IT. That is that's one of the big parts in training as well. I remember it pretty good myself, just because on top of the mental strain, they'll put in the physical strain, and majority of it is through his IT too. So at the same time, they'll make you do various exercises, push-ups, mountain climbers, jumping jacks, at the same time while giving you different commands and orders, telling you to maybe look left, look right, up, down. And so it's multiple things you're trying to process. So mentally, you're trying to get through each and every command with what they're telling you to do. And then physically, you're trying to keep up with whatever physical training they're having you undergo. Sometimes it might be running to a fence and back and forth, stuff like that. It's just pretty much putting your body to its limit. That way you can overcome it. Okay, so that's closed order drill. Originally, it started as a way to instill leadership, pride, and discipline. And still today, we still use it for the same things. But now we do tend to shift a little bit toward more ceremonial times because it makes us look the best that we can. But also, it's really nice when you undergo that training and then from an outside perspective and you see other units going through and how disciplined they look and how sharp it is. I did not like swim call. I'll be completely honest. I am a horrible swimmer, even though I somehow float. But it's even now, being in the Marine Corps for a few years, that's still one of my dreaded moments every time our swim call comes up, because every year you have to re-qualify on it just to make sure you're on top of it. There's a few things that we re-qual every year, something like our rifle qualifications, our physical fitness, our combat fitness, stuff like that. Joseph went pretty good on explaining the events that you had to do. You had to tread water, you had to do a 25-meter unassisted swim, then a 25-meter assisted swim with your pack, as well as jumping off 10 feet and then swimming another 25 meters. That was actually one of my hardest parts. I actually thought in recruit training I was not going to make it just because swim qual alone. But the instructors there, they're very helpful. If you put in the effort, they'll keep assisting you until you're finally able to pass. And I spent a few days with them going far in depth on trying to learn. But on the bright side now, I can somewhat swim.
Hoorah.
Our combat fitness tests. So that was one of the qualifications I said we do yearly. It's actually a pretty simple test. We do a maneuver to contact. We'll run about half a mile in our full gear. Well, in our full just camis. It's pretty much simulating like getting from point A to point B under some kind of situation arises, especially in the MSG program. That's very vital for us because that can realistically be what happens in any case of scenario that happens whenever we get called to react or something. The second portion, it is the ammo can lift, where we'll get a 30-pound ammo can, and sometimes it varies, maybe 35 pounds, even 40 if you're unlucky. And we'll pretty much just do repetitions where you lift it above your head and below your chin. Pretty much what that simulates is your constant moving and activity during an actual combat scenario. So Maybe you're moving weapons around, ammo, equipment, stuff like that. That way you start getting used to the tiring effect caused by that. And the final event with that is the maneuver under fire, where there's various events that you do with it. You'll start at the prone position, get up, run about 15 feet it is, 25?
I'm not sure how many meters, but yeah, you run up to the first
Yeah.
cones.
It's like 20 feet, maybe 10 meters or so. You'll run past some cones, do a J hook again, go back down on the ground, start doing a low crawl followed by a high crawl. And that's just to simulate some of the combat environments that you could possibly introduce to, or some of the stuff you'll have to do. Then from there, you'll get up, zigzag a few cones, simulating different obstacles, and eventually you have a buddy on the ground. You have to pick up your buddy and drag him to a certain point. Then once you hit that certain point, you have to pick him up, carry him, and then run all the way back to the starting line. That's pretty much simulating like an actual event. If something were to happen, that you're able to recover your teammate or your friend and be able to get them back to any safe zone, essentially. Then from there, you'll grab 2 different ammo cans, each weighing 30 pounds, and you'll go through the entire course. You'll run through all the way again, zigzag around your cone, simulating obstacles, going to the end point where there'll be a practice grenade there, throw it to the designated area or the target, and that's pretty much simulating resupply for your ammo, just because there will be times where you do expend what you have on you, and you'll have to send a runner or 2 to go get more for everyone. The grenade throw is just to simulate the throwing itself, just because in some kinds of combat scenarios, we will have to utilize some of our other assets such as grenades. Once you do that, you'll drop down, do 5 push-ups, 10 push-ups, just to simulate some more extra physical strain on your body during the entire scenario. You'll grab your ammo cans, sprint back all the way back to the starting line, and that'll conclude the combat fitness test we do. We try to push ourselves to the max, just because in an actual scenario, you never know what could happen. So we try to pretty much go beyond our limits every time when we do our qualifications, and even when we practice for that. Next. Yeah, you can skip that. As Marines, we're constantly sparring, using pugil sticks or gloves, or just straight out grappling with our different various levels of map. So for that, I'll just pretty much just skip it. It's pretty brief. There are some confidence courses, such as the rappel towers. There's also some towers where you actually have to climb up to 60 feet in the air. You have like these different logs that are about 5-6 feet apart. So if someone's short like me, I did struggle a lot because I was pretty much like jumping to get to the next log. And all it is to instill some more confidence and test your limits. The entire time of recruit training is to get you out of your comfort zone, to get you used to new things. On your left, on the PowerPoint, you see a rappel tower. Pretty much we learn how to tie a little safety rappel thing on ourselves, loop it through the actual cable, and then start actually rappelling down. So we'll do like swift jumps with our rear hand, keeping as a little brake momentum, and we'll rappel all the way down to the bottom. So that could easily simulate as climbing down a steep cliff, a building, or even rappelling from an actual helicopter itself. So the gas chamber, that is also another confidence course that we undergo. We'll have a brief week period of instruction prior to the actual gas chamber itself. They'll explain to us what kind of chemicals we could be exposed to, blister agents, nerve agents, choking agents, stuff like that. Pretty much explains on what different kinds of each, how we would go to counteract them. Then we'll go through training with a J-list. So it's a joint service. It's pretty much a training suit that helps you in an actual CBRN environment. So a chemical, biological, radiation, and nuclear environment. We learn how to don the equipment with our mask, how to doff it, how to change it in an actual scenario, and how to change our filters and all that. And the culminating event for that would be go into an actual gas chamber. This gas chamber we'll go in, we'll clear our mask, put it on. They'll break some pellets for CS gas to start filtering through the entire room. Then we'll break our seal, get get affected by the gas. And at that point, that's where we go sort of a mix of physical and mental strain, because it's a choking hazard. So you'll feel like you can't breathe when you actually still can. That you get used to it after a few times going in and out through the training, because it's one of the yearly requirements we do. Then after a certain time, you put your mask back on, you clear the chemicals from the mask, and you create your seal again. You assist any of your fellow Marines. You make sure that they're all okay. You give the sign, the gas sign, which is just doing a little tap on your head like this, as well as a verbal saying gas, gas, gas. Then once everyone's been outfitted again and they're clear of chemical agents, we verify and make sure our seals are correct and all that. And we'll conclude the training with that for the chemical training for that. So the statement that every Marine is a rifleman is very true. I'm actually a non-combat MOS. MOS is pretty much the short term for our job. So even for the non-combat ones and the infantry combat MOSs like Joseph here, we do our training every year, sometimes even twice a year, depending on the scenario, or if you're doing any workups to go to any various countries. We'll have a whole week called Grass Week prior to the actual going out to the range and shooting. During Grass Week, we'll pretty much learn our weapon, do a refresher on it, some emergency action drills in case your weapon jams on you, or if some kind of scenario happens where you have to fix it under fire or a stressful environment. Then they'll also go into training about how to properly sight in on targets using each section of the RCO. The RCO is the scope mounted on all the M16s or M4s if you're lucky enough. They'll go through each one, telling you which is the proper way to sight in at a specific yard line, whether it be 100, 200, 500, or 300. Then once we do that, we'll have a test of that Grass Week just to ensure that you do know what you're doing, as well as that you're maintaining the force safety rules in mind. Then once you complete that, the next week we'll actually start the field week, where we'll head out to one of our various ranges on different camps that we're stationed at. And then from there, we'll go under usually just the Table 1 and Table 2. Table 1 is a known distance range where you'll do your BZO just to set your RCO, make sure its optics are calibrated properly. Then you'll do 100 and 200 shoots. 100 to be an additional calibration. Then your actual 200 will be your first string of fire. You'll do a sitting, a prone, and the rapid fires, pretty much to ensure that you'll be able to hit your target at that designated distance. We'll go back to 300, go through it again. Then we'll go through the 500 distance, and that'll be strictly only prone, just because that is the farthest distance that any of our branches do qualify at, especially with our sites. Then once you complete that Table 1, that'll be all a workup. Then the next day you'll actually qualify on it, where those scores for those shots will be marked down. They'll be input into the system to see what you qualify as. There's 3 qualifications, whether you're expert, sharpshooter, or a marksman. The second stage is Table 2, where it's more combat oriented, where you'll actually have your full combat kit. So your flak, your protective vest, your Kevlar, it's a helmet that protects you as well. You'll be doing usually at the 100, but some ranges may not accommodate it, like mine back in Japan, where you'll have to utilize the 200 in that case. You'll be shooting standing up in a more combat position at targets that are actually moving. So you have targets that are about a person wide, moving back and forth, maybe 5 to 10 feet, depending on various speeds on the person who's actually moving it out in the pits. And it's pretty much focused to more combat oriented. So like if you were on a patrol as a infantry or even a non-MOS, that you'll be able to react to them and confidently be able to put a few rounds down range or into their area immediately. Then from there, they'll record the scores again, they'll grade you, and then they'll compile both your Table 1 and Table 2 scores together, and that'll give you whatever your rifle qualification for that year is. Additionally, if you're doing any workups, there might be additional ranges you'll do, such as night fires, where you'll use your NVGs, goggles to pretty much see in the dark. You'll use that, engage the same ones. There's some more in-depth combat oriented ranges where you might even do like a shoot house. It's pretty much like a sort of a mount town, as you will, but it's designed towards close combat, pretty much searching and clearing different rooms, maybe engaging a target or two. Something that is actually really useful for us in the MSG program, because a lot of the tactics you do learn in that do correlate and transfer over. Physical training is a continuous thing in boot camp. So you will be definitely out of your comfort zone all the time, whether you're doing a low crawl in the sand in full gear, trying to keep your head down low. That way you don't get hit by anything going above you. We'll do some medical training scenarios where an example would be like, one Marine is down. How would you react to that? Immediately a Marine would start putting like a tourniquet on them if applicable, start getting them on a stretcher, or doing a two-man buddy carry, as you can see in the picture below. There's also our hikes. We'll do long distance hikes to 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers. Next slide. And then graduation, that's one of the best times. We'll go through our crucible. It's an excruciating time where you get absolutely pushed to your limits. I know for East Coast you don't have that, but for West Coast, we have this giant mountain that is just a beast in itself, and we have to climb that with our full kit. So we'll have our vest on, our Kevlar on, our pack, which weighs about 60 to 80 pounds, and then our rifles, and we absolutely have to climb in. And it's about I would say a 30 to 40% incline, and it is just a monster trying to climb it. You do occasionally fall, and that's where our teamwork comes in handy, because we'll help pick each other up, because with how much those packs weigh, you're essentially like a turtle when you do fall over, where it's a struggle to get back up. Eventually, when we do climb up to the top, there's this nice little view of the overlook training area, and at that point, we get presented our little chevrons to pretty much initiate us as being actual Marines now that we completed our training. Then at that point, that's such a heartfelt moment where every Marine that's gone through it, I can guarantee you will remember it. I remember when I went through, I was so happy because we had been hiking for maybe 15, almost 20 miles up it. And the corpsmen that were attached to us to attend to any medical needs kept saying there's like an extra 4 or 10 miles left. So it was kind of like breaking us in the heart slowly. But when we got to the top, we're like, we made it. I broke down crying. I was like, yes, no more hiking. Until later on, I realized we had to hike back down. But at that point, I wasn't really mad. We became Marines. Our drill instructors were congratulating us, telling us how much of a pleasure it is to have us in their corps, and that how greatly they're happy to be able to share that with us. And it was fun. Then when we came back down the next day, we got changed into our uniforms, our dress uniforms. So you'll see our chucks, the ones with green pants, and the blue ones are our dress uniforms. We'll have a formation with all the civilians that are present, so family members of all the Marines, as well as other people to attend. We'll do a graduation ceremony where our drill instructor will dismiss us for the last time. And at that point on, we'll begin our actual career as Marines, as qualified Marines that are in the Corps. And it is just a heartfelt moment, because then you see your family after 13 weeks of no communication. Maybe you had some mail put in through to communicate with them, but with the time it takes to get from point A to point B, that does take a few weeks. So it's pretty nice to be able to talk to them. And with that, that was a pretty good background for the actual background of the training, the Marine Corps that we go through. I'm going to jump into mine now. I forgot that was mine for a second. About me, I was born in Palm Springs, California. I was actually raised in Cathedral City, which is one of the cities right next to it. I'm the youngest of 4 children, actually. The oldest is, he's 42, and he's actually in the Army. He's been in for 20 years. Originally, after high school, I thought I was going to join the Army. That's why I did do the Explore program to help me get more oriented in that kind of scenario. The program was nice. During those 4 years, we got to do different, we got to go to the police academy that it was kind of like a watered down version for us, where we got to see what all the physical training that police officers go through, what they have to learn, some of the tactics they use. And then we also got to go some competitions, such as in Chandler, Arizona, where we got to meet other units that are in the Explorer program from different cities, and we got to compete against them. So we would do stuff like pushing a vehicle up a steep hill, doing some raids in a field, and they would do their best to make it more realistic. They would have actors simulating stuff, and it's just a whole wave of stimuli to pretty much be able to get you to react properly, how you can filter in the different stuff you're getting through. And then it prepared me really good for the military, so I'm thankful I went through that program. Then once I did graduate, I was going to go to the Army, follow in the footsteps of my oldest brother, so to speak, until one of the days towards graduation, I was just walking out of the school. One of the Marine recruiters that does frequent the school to talk about the various benefits and opportunities within the Marine Corps had passed by me, and he had noticed one of my drawings, and was like, "Hey man, that's actually pretty cool." He had stopped me for a few minutes, started asking about what my plans after high school were going to be, because I was a graduating senior. I started talking with a few minutes. He asked if I had time to speak about the Marine Corps, because he had asked me about it, and I told him I didn't really talk to any of the recruiters at all. I was just going to jump straight into the Army. So I made a meeting with them where I sat down and talked with them. And after that short period of maybe 15, 20 minutes, I was absolutely sold. And I do not regret it one bit, not one bit. And I am actually a first-generation Mexican-American. My mother came from Mexico, from a place called Guanajuato. The actual city was called San Jose de Peralta. She pretty much crossed the border, got her green card to try to get her family a better life. And looking at me and my fellow brothers and sister, and even my mom, she definitely got it what she was going for. She put in a lot of effort and work into us, and I'm just glad about that. There's nothing I can't do to thank her enough for the opportunity she's gotten me. So one of my first countries after all my training I went through was actually Japan. It is known as the land of the rising sun. Tokyo is its capital, and the currency used is called yen. The conversion is about $1 is about 1,000 yen. And one of the best things that I love the most was that it has a low crime rate. The crime rate is so low that there's actually children like 5 years old just walking to school by themselves. And just the discipline that they teach their children is just eye-opening. Like, I would not expect to see a 4 or 5 year old just walking to school by themselves, crossing the road, just unassisted. I thought that was one of the biggest things I saw. And I just loved it. Everyone in the country was so kind and helpful to you. They're so outgoing. Even if you don't speak their language, they would do their best within their power to assist you. I remember one time off duty, I went to visit mainland, and something had happened with my flights got skewed, where I pretty much had to stay overnight, and I could not find a hotel for the life of me. But I was able to get in contact with some of the locals. The language barrier was very difficult to get through, but I managed to communicate that I needed a hotel, or how would I be able to get to one. And they assisted me getting all the way to it, even with my baggage. And that is memorable. I love that. I thank them even to this day. And it's just great. So Japan is made of multiple islands. One of the islands is called Okinawa. That was actually where I was stationed. Majority of the U.S. military bases that are in Japan are actually stationed on Okinawa. Mainly for all the Marine Corps installations, they're generally known as a collective, known as Camp Smedley D. Butler. But if you see in the top right, it breaks down to the different bases that are on there. So you have Camp Schwab, Camp Hansen, Camp Courtney, Torrey Beach, White Beach, Camp Foster, Air Station Futenma, Camp Kinzer, Camp Gonzalez. I was actually stationed on Marine Corps Air Station Futenma. That is one of the biggest flight lines we have on Okinawa, where we do majority of our flights. We'll have some other operations on there. I've been to some of the other camps up north, such as Kinzer, Hansen, Courtney as well for other training purposes. Compared to all the other camps, Marine Corps Air Station Futenma is one of the smaller ones, but for our size, we do a lot of missions. And a lot of those missions aren't just within Japan. They're out in the entire Pacific area. So there will be times where we visit the Philippines, Taiwan, South Korea, even mainland Japan, or even Australia. One of the best things I had while I was in Japan is the Marine Corps Ball. So that's to celebrate our Marine Corps birthday, which is November 10th, and we started in 1775. So that is actually coming up in a few months. It goes back to our roots where we originated in Tun Tavern in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We actually started as only 2 battalions of Marines. And this goes over and celebrates our history from back in 1775 all the way up to 2020 now. We'll even read General Lejeune's birthday message in part of the ceremony of a cake cutting ceremony where we have the oldest Marine cut a piece of the cake and then pass it down to the youngest Marine, so pretty much to simulate the passing of our traditions from the older generation to the newer generation. And we do it every year, or if we're not afforded the opportunity, like an example would be now, thanks to COVID-19, we adapt. We'll at least have the mandatory stuff, such as the reading of the message, a cake ceremony. There have been times in the field where I've done that just because we weren't afforded the opportunity to have a grand ball if possible. And this brings me to one of the first countries I was able to visit while in Japan, South Korea. I was actually there fairly recent after arriving in Japan. I was in Japan for maybe 2-3 months when they surprised me and told me I was going to South Korea. It is actually known as the Republic of Korea, so ROK for short. I actually did not know that until I actually got there. It is actually known as the land of the morning calm, and Seoul is their capital. The currency that they use there is won. The rate is about the same as Japan, where $1 is about 10,000 won. And it brings me to the first place I was at. So I was actually in Osan Air Force Base. It was actually built in 1951 and has been working throughout the entire time up until present time. Up in the top left, you'll see the picture of when I first arrived there. We arrived through a C-130. It was just a massive plane where we just stuffed as much gear and Marines as possible inside of it. Kind of reminds me of kind of being in a tin can. Yeah. One of the headquarters for the Korean Air Defense Operations is actually located in there, as well as the 51st, the United States Air Force 51st Fighter Wing, which we got to know pretty closely working with them on joint operations out there. And Seoul and Osan Air Base are one of the key arrival and departure points for any U.S. military service members going in and out of the country. As you can see on the bottom left, that was my cake cutting ceremony, where I was actually the youngest Marine at the time, being, I think, 18. Yeah, I think 18, and my gunnery sergeant was, I'm not going to mention his age because he might actually be watching this. And I'm not trying to get a call from that later on about, why are you mentioning my age? But we did have a field birthday celebration where all of us were in our camis. Some of them were with their weapons just because they were on duty at the time. We had a short little ceremony. Then afterwards, we just went straight back to work because we were in an operational scenario. Then occasionally, when we were on off time, we were trying to advance in our McMap. So we would get with an instructor who was qualified to teach us, and we would do various scenarios, go through different of the techniques, and then do a grappling session, as you can see in the middle of the middle section. We'd have our flak on to simulate a combat environment, and then we'd grapple each other just to give you the physical stressor of that, because that could be an enemy or something like that, and then just trying to get them into different positions where you could utilize different techniques. In that case, I was pretty much just choking him out with his own flak, and that just shows us to how even your defensive equipment can be used against you, and how the heat of the moment anything can happen. So on the off time, I actually got to visit the demilitarized zone, also known as the DMZ. It's actually a military demarcation line. So kind of a ceasefire line, and the DMZ are buffers on each side for North Korea and South Korea. It's actually following the 38th parallel, or latitude 38 as known. You see in the top right picture, those are the meeting houses where the North and South Koreans would meet, have their political talks, and in between the little area, there's actually the line showing you where South Korea ends and you're entering North Korea. And on both sides, they station guards. As you can see on the top right picture, those are South Korean guards. And then on the inside, on the bottom picture, it shows you the inside of one of those meeting rooms. The guard at the far end is actually standing on the North Korean side, because previously they had an incident where North Koreans had came through, they had dragged someone through, and they had attacked them. So they're stationed there to ensure safety for everyone. The guard on the left side, he's actually standing on the demarcation line itself. So if you're on his left side, which I was at one point, I was standing in North Korea. If you're on his right side, you're in South Korea. One of the other countries I got to visit, and I love it still to this day, was Australia. It is known as the land down under. Crazy thing, Canberra is actually the capital of it. Some people would think Sydney would be the capital, but actually it was Canberra. It's a small little city. Population isn't that big. The currency is Australian dollars. It's roughly the same size as the United States, actually. So that shows you just how big Australia actually is. So one of the bases I got the pleasure of being stationed on was Robertson Barracks and Royal Australian Air Force Base Darwin. That's actually the home to the Marine Rotational Force Darwin. It was actually established in June 1st, 1940. It was kind of the pre-up to World War II, where they saw something was about to happen. So they were trying to accumulate all their forces as possible before something actually did happen. On the top left, you'll see two pictures of the environment I was in. We're in an operational environment trying to carry out a mission. You'll see some of our Ospreys landing. They actually came from MCAS Futenma, actually, surprisingly. At the bottom left, you'll see one of our Marines getting into radio communication with said Osprey before their landing. In the middle, it was a group picture of all the Marines and Army and other exterior agencies we got the pleasure of working with, and some Australian military we got to work with on there. On the bottom right, you'll see actually Robertson Barracks. And that brings the end of my presentation. Does anyone have any questions to me or Joseph?
We can't hear you, John.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, David. And it was very nice to hear about your service in the Marine Corps, about your life, and about other countries too. So yeah, we have a couple of questions to both of you guys. We got actually a comment from Todd Holman Jones, and he says, going back to the conversation about hiking, he says that you should hike with Boris. And if anyone can out-hike that old bastard, it's a US Marine.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge, right. A question from US Embassy Tashkent. Why did you decide not to go into the army and go into the Marines? And what are the differences?
So during that time with the recruiter, he pretty much set down these different placards, and on each of these different placards, it had different words on it. So one was like camaraderie, brotherhood, travel, financial stability, different stuff like that. And he pretty much told me to look through them all, choose the three that stood out most to me. So for me, it was brotherhood, travel, and the camaraderie. And how he explained the Marine Corps, we're just a giant brotherhood, and that stuck to me pretty much. And as well as looking at the actual uniforms itself, if you look at the Army uniform compared to the Marine Corps uniform, we stand out. We have the best uniforms as well as the worst uniforms. So if you ever see us in our PT uniforms, in our green shorts and green shirt, it is an absolute train wreck. But if you also see us in our dress uniform, really?
A little
to
bit.
each to their own. But if you see us in our dress uniforms, we just look absolutely stunning. It does choke you a little bit, but some of the prices you have to pay to look good. And after that talk with them, I was just sold. Maybe in the future, I might go back. I might actually go to the Army, depending on what the future of the Marine Corps is and how they make some of their choices. But for now, I'm just loving the Marine Corps. I re-enlisted due to the actual Marines themselves, because how much of a close family we are, I just love it.
Okay, thank you, David. Joseph, what about you? What made you choose the Marine Corps?
Right. So I chose the Marine Corps because it just seemed like the most. It just seemed like the most. What's that word? Like the best, like the most elite branch out of all the branches. The Army.
I mean, it's because we are.
I mean, the Army. Nothing against the Army. I would have joined the Army, but I think the Marine Corps was just more appealing to me. They were known as to be one of the finest fighting forces, and their boot camp was known to be the hardest boot camp, the most challenging. And I honestly just wanted to challenge myself, see if I could prove myself and get through it. And I wanted something that I could actually be genuinely proud of. Not saying that the Army is like not worth being proud of, but I just thought the Marine Corps was the best at the best. And then from here, there's more steps I can take to actually challenge myself more. But for the time being, when I was enlisting, the Marine Corps looked like the most challenging. So that's why I wanted the Marine Corps.
I think one of the best ways to sum it up is we'll hear this a lot while we're in the Corps, is that just look at our numbers compared to the Army. The Army can just overwhelm anyone with numbers. But with our little numbers and what little gear we do have, because we do get a lot of the hand-me-downs from all our sister branches, we're still the world's most best fighting force, as well as the first responders to any scenarios. So that just shows how elite we are with little people, little equipment, and we're still regarded as the best fighting force from everyone.
Wonderful. And you both mentioned that you took training in a boot camp. Is it a different time for training, or is it always 13 weeks? Or you can choose different time to stay in the boot camp?
Oh, I wish. That would be perfect. So it's 13 weeks broken down into 3 different phases, and it's all a strict curriculum that they follow to the T, and it pretty much leads up to the next step. The other branches, they have different trainings. There might be 9 weeks, 8 weeks, 7 weeks, but for the Marine Corps, it will always be 13 weeks at that time. They have been talking about maybe extending it and adding a 4th phase towards the end of it. We'll see how that goes with our newer Marines joining the Corps. But for the most part, that's how it's going to be for the entire time, or at least until they change it for the better.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you. We have a question from Dania. She's asking, could you please give some advice to school kids and their parents who consider military service as their future career or their kids' career? And what do they need to focus on at school?
So first, I would like to say, since I recently enlisted like a year ago, like parents usually don't want their children to actually go into the military is pretty common. So I would say first, if your kids do want to go to the military, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Don't automatically discourage it. In my situation, I think probably like all of our situations, is probably like one of the best decisions we ever made, and we ended up loving the Marine Corps. But in terms of what they need to focus on, I say definitely you want to be physically fit, because if you want to be part of the military, you should be holding yourself up to that to physically fit standard. In terms of education, what would you say, Sarn?
So physical fitness is one of the big things, but even if you don't work on it going in, that is what the 13 weeks is to train you on as well. It doesn't help to learn about whatever branch you're learning about, their history, their birthday, and all that, because you do learn about that inside boot camp too. Like our brains are probably jam packed with all the knowledge, like Opha Johnson, the Montford Point Marines, different stuff like that. But even then, even education itself is one of the big things. Like even now, both me and Joseph, we're going through college ourselves, try to get our degrees. So I would just keep going through whatever training you're going through, physical fitness, your education. Try to prepare yourself a little bit mentally. It's not as crazy as everyone thinks. Like, oh, you're in the military, you're gonna die or something. It's not like that exactly. There's only 30% of actual MOSs are combat related, such as Joseph here. The other ones.
Just to hit on that, even if you are a combat MOS like infantry, the chances of you actually going out to war are very slim right now. There's not much war going on for us.
Yeah, but in our case, we do keep training in that mindset, thinking that anything can happen at any time, because that is the mindset of the Marines, especially as first responders. But even as non-combat MOSs such as myself, our job is to support the combat MOSs with whatever abilities we can. So in my example, I would provide him with all the communication he needs to be able to get resources inbound and outbound, stuff like that. But yeah, trying to join the military, I would love to see you guys in my corps or even in our sister branches. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Sister branches.
Yeah.
Sister.
Yeah, Army, Navy.
We call them
Air
sister
Force.
branches. Okay.
I mean, what do you want to call them? Yeah. But just have your goal in mind and just keep pushing towards it.
Okay, we have a couple of questions that we might probably cover.
Comment section.
We don't have much time left. So the question from US Embassy Tashkent: do you learn any local languages on your travels, and do either of you speak other languages?
So I think we both probably speak Spanish. So I'm from Dominican. I was a first generation immigrant from Dominican Republic. So both my parents spoke Spanish. So I learned Spanish from speaking it with them. But in terms of traveling, my first time going overseas in the Marine Corps was here in Tashkent. So I've been trying to learn Russian. I'm taking Russian courses in college, and I'm trying, but it's not there yet. It's gonna take a little work.
Отлично, молодец.
In my case, like how Joseph said, Spanish is one of my big languages, just because in my household that was the major language growing up, and then I learned English later on. With Australia, it's English still, just a little bit different. Like McDonald's, they'll say Macca's. Some of the trying to learn their version of lingo was a little bit difficult, but towards the end it was easy. Japanese, it was a little bit hard to learn, but now I'm somewhat fluent. I can easily get around the city, whether it's like telling someone like, hey, go to the right, migi, or left, hidari, or just straight masubu, or chotomate, like wait a minute. And it's helped me a lot, especially trying to get around town, especially off duty, trying to visit like mainland Japan or other islands. I'm looking forward to learn Russian and Uzbek. I'm slowly learning. I've learned like 1 or 2 words so far. And every time I learn a new word, it's like a big achievement for me, where I gotta celebrate, run around the house, kind of like yelling it out loud. I'm hopefully I'm gonna continue learning it and eventually become fluent in it.
Wonderful. Okay, we got a question from Cholpon. She's actually from our neighboring country, Kyrgyzstan, and she's asking, what are the main 3 qualities or traits that the ideal U.S. Marine should have?
JJ, the type buckle. So we have qualities. So we have 14 leadership traits.
Mhm.
The acronym is JJ the type buckle. So we have freaking. So the ones that stick out to me are loyalty. So you need to have loyalty. You need to have. Well, I'll just say, all right. So you need commitment.
Mm-hmm.
You need loyalty.
One more.
The 2 are like the same. All right.
Do they need to have physical strength?
Yes. I think that should be like they should already be holding themselves to that standard in terms of physical strength.
Mm-hmm.
But 3 qualities and traits, Justice.
For me, I'll actually go through JJ did type buckle for those that don't know. It's each one stands for a different trait. So judgment,
Justice, judgment, decisiveness,
dependability, initiative, decisiveness, bearing, unselfishness, courage, knowledge, loyalty, and enthusiasm. And I would say the 3 that stick out to me the most would be loyalty, just how Joseph said, because if you look back in Marine Corps history, we never leave a Marine behind, or even some of our other branches. Occasionally we'd be with the Army, we would make sure all of them are returned safely, even with their equipment with us, while some of them would probably start abandoning each other. So loyalty is one of the biggest things. Like, that's one of the big things we harp on. Like, you will never leave a Marine behind. And
Mm-hmm.
to this day, I still keep that to my dear and near, close to my heart. Unselfishness, I think that's also one of the biggest things, because it does take a lot, and it ties in with courage as well, which is my 3rd. Just because there will be moments where you might have to run into a situation not knowing what's going on to be able to get your Marine or to be able to react. And you'll need the courage to be able to push through forward into that unknown and to be able to do what you got to do. And especially with the MSG program working here at Tashkent, that's a pretty big thing, because some of those scenarios, that's exactly what we could be going into. Unknown situations, not knowing what's happening, or even if a Marine goes down. And all 3 of those traits would apply to us, where we make sure our Marine is safe, we take them back with us, as well as handle whatever is going on.
Just to give a clear answer, I'd say courage, unselfishness, and loyalty.
Did you just copy me now?
Uh-huh.
I think so.
Yeah, you did.
This is great. That would be so good if everyone had those traits and not just Marines. But yeah, unfortunately, we have to wrap up. The time is flying, and thank you so much, guys. And we learned so much about service in the Marine Corps and about you. And I'm sorry that Christopher Herrera wasn't able to join us today, but hopefully we'll get him some time to do the chat for us. He was busy with work. Yeah, thanks so much, and we hope to see you again doing chat one day.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having us on here. It was definitely appreciative of this.
I love it. I did something similar back in Japan, so it is just a wonderful opportunity to be able to do this and communicate with some of the locals, as well as express some of our experiences in the Marine Corps and amongst other stuff. I can't wait till later on to be able to add Tashkent into my countries that I visited. Maybe some of the nearby countries like Kyrgyzstan. We'll definitely make sure to drag along Christopher with us next time.
Yes.
We'll see some of our fellow Marines as well, try to get more people in this. And yeah, we're definitely going to be here for more chai chats, definitely.
Wonderful. That's a great plan. All right. So everybody in the audience, thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you for wonderful questions. And we'll see you next Friday, same time at 6 p.m. please join us. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. It's our
Bye.
pleasure.
Thank you.
You should salute them.
Yeah.